Well, good morning, everybody. What a trip yesterday. Thanks for all of your concern. No, I have not been cloned or replaced by AI, but I did get hacked yesterday, apparently. I was outside working on putting together a shed, and apparently someone came onto my computer remotely, it seems, opened up my streaming software, which I had already closed, and then went into YouTube Live. And that's what you guys saw yesterday. Started streaming my web browser, which of course showed I had a weather tab opened up, and they showed my location of where I live. Now, this went on for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, something told me, come in, get a drink of water. And I look on my phone, and there's like 100 messages from you guys. So thank you. And you guys are extremely concerned because all you guys saw on your end was a page pulled up and no sound. So I quickly ended the stream, and I then I said a few words to you guys in the chat, but most of you wanted like proof of life or something. So look, I appreciate that. I will not live in fear. They can do whatever they want. They can do these things sometimes, not because they don't know where I live. Of course, the government knows where I live. People think I'm hiding from the government. No, the government knows exactly where I live, right? But they hope to create a cover story in case they want to create a scenario in the future to take me out. You see, the elite's biggest fear is crowd investigation, we call it. They know that literally any of their victims could come forward to any truth channel with physical proof against them. It could be some DNA, it could be pictures, it could be whatever. A text message, a photo, a video of something. And the control apparatus hates that there are all these millions of publishers, essentially. And this is why they do what they can to minimize your reach to as many people as possible. Because they know that when people amass a huge following, when they're approached by a victim that has real proof, that literally it could end their whole program. It can end the whole thing. And they know this. So they hate this. So they do this soft gaslighting, things like remotely hacking computers, right? Thinking that you'll be so freaked out by it that you'll just quit. I will never quit. And, we've all seen it. We've all seen this happen and how this works. That sometimes content creators that have huge audiences that haven't sold out yet, we'll give that caveat, that they can break news that the elite hate. They absolutely hate it. So they start with electronic harassment, and then at that point they can craft scenarios and cover stories to explain away whatever outcome that they wish to have. So they could say, oh, he was doxxed, and then there was an angry subscriber who was mad that he was covering Trump so much, and they came and killed him. No, that's not going to happen. So they'll dox you first, so that your private information goes out to everyone, and it's usually a precursor to a future event. But again, I won't live in fear. So I've got cameras on this property. I've got loaded weapons. It's one way in, one way out. I have neighbors that literally text me if there's a car that drives down our road that they don't recognize. And I'm recording everything. So whatever they want to do or think they're going to do, they're going to get caught. I also have individuals that have access to my information, my cameras and recordings in case of an event happens. So that whatever cover story they come up with, it's not going to stick. Okay. So today's show is one such show that they don't want to be made public. Today's show is one such show. Now, the other day, we broke a huge story. A huge story. That Epstein literally visited Trump a few weeks after Trump won the first election in 2016. Some say they spent Thanksgiving together and that there were other important people that went to Trump Tower to see Trump. But it's right there in the Epstein files. You would think that video would be seen by tens of millions of people who care. But instead, YouTube has the algorithms suppressing it at about 5,000 views. It's about half of all of our other Epstein videos. So you guys, let's break the internet. Let's do it. I'm going to put a link to that in the pinned comment to that video in which we literally showed the email where Epstein said he went to Trump Tower a few weeks after the election. And the person that he was corresponding with asked him if Trump was going to put him in his cabinet. That should be front page news. Proof. So we need your help to break the internet. I'll put the link. In fact, I'll put the link now, and then you guys can share the video. Here's the video here. Control C, Control V. Let's see here. And then we'll get to the rest of the show. So there you go. Click on that. Hit send, share, whatever. Let's break the internet. Now, what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, now I didn't find this first Epstein file. I saw this on Facebook. And essentially, this is a memo or an email in between people from the FBI whose all their names are redacted, but it says FBI right there. And guess what? They're admitting in this email to redacting presidents' names as well as secretaries of state. Who could that be? They're asking for guidance on this. It says here, IMD RIDS needs clear and specific guidance to redact those photographs. Some photographs depict victims, unknown, unidentified females and males, former U.S. presidents, Secretary of State, and other celebrities. So, again, all this should be front page news. I don't know what's going on. Is it that if people don't see it in the news, it doesn't matter? I don't know what this is, but I do know there's a lot of truth channels telling you to look the other way, which is weird to me, telling you this means nothing, but yet it means everything. I hear a lot of people telling me I'm the only one looking at the files or one of the few that are actually digging into the files. What happened to the truth community, you guys? This is crazy. Are people afraid? I don't know. But anyway, let's keep going. Now, I'll put a link to this as well in the pinned comment. Now, this is the bombshell. You're not even going to believe this. This file that I found next. These are public minutes from the Virgin Islands government of Epstein proposing a secret biomedical research project on the island of St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. And he's before a board and they're having a conversation. Now wait till you hear this. Because it seems as though he admits here that the reason why he purchased Epstein Island was because of its proximity to the internet. This is really unbelievable. And by the end of the show today, we're going to start to piece together this whole cloning conspiracy and what it means for humanity. Because this is crazy. A secret DNA project. Now, the year was 2012. This was 4 years after he was already convicted as a sex offender. But yet, these people act as though nothing to see here. Move along. Now, typically, a person convicted of being a sex offender, that's the end of life for them. They'd have better luck getting a job at a gas station or an auto parts store. It's over, right? But not for the rich and powerful. They get to keep making deals, and life is just the same. Now, what is going on here? We're going to go through these minutes in detail. Epstein is literally giving an economic proposal to the government of the Virgin Islands. And what is the topic? Biomedical gene research. And by the end of this, you're going to see that Epstein was literally a mad scientist. Now, in searching through the files, I uncovered a secret medical company started by Epstein called the Southern Trust. It's mentioned in this document and this public hearing in which Epstein presented in his own words a biomedical experiment to the government of St. Thomas to pour jobs and money into the island. Biomedical gene research. Now, as much as people try to say Epstein wasn't an evil genius, he had access to the top scientists in the world. A good portion of the leaders in genetic research were in contact with Epstein. And I'm starting to wonder now if our own government was using Epstein as a proxy to do this research so they could keep their hands clean. In other words, our government were the ones who hired Epstein to be the middleman to research what would otherwise be illegal. Now, later in today's show, I'm going to show you there was a scientist that Epstein was talking with that seemed to want to back out because of ethical concerns about cloning. Now, we're going to read most of this, and then after this, we'll delve into these emails in which Epstein talks about tissue regeneration and cloning. Let's get started. Now, the meeting, pretty close to the beginning, introduces Epstein, and they thank him for all his financial contributions. They introduce his company, the Southern Trust, and how his company will create jobs and pour money into St. Thomas. Here are all the people that were at the meeting. Interestingly, they don't show Jeffrey Epstein's name in the beginning. They introduce him later. So if you were just browsing this, you would never know he spoke unless you actually went through and into the document. Let's get started. Now, it says here, they swear him in. Epstein, duly sworn in by Attorney Smock. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to come to you today and speak with you regarding my client, Southern Trust Company, Inc. I'm here today with Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, who is the president of Southern Trust. And after a brief introduction covering the business and its compliance with the statutory requirements of the EDC program, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Epstein, and he will be able to talk to you a little bit about the new business model. Southern Trust, which will be located on the island of St. Thomas, is applying for benefits under Category 2A as a designated service business. And once it gets up and running, it will provide cutting-edge consulting services to companies around the world, relying in part upon the use of biomedical and financial informatics. Oh, what could go wrong there? The client base for this company is going to range from individual consumers to scientists to investment companies looking to create new strategies using what's called mine information. I want to get a few housekeeping out of the way and on the record before Mr. Epstein explains to you exactly what it is they're going to be doing. Southern Trust is going to meet all the statutory requirements, including that with respect to capital investment. In fact, Southern Trust has indicated in their application they will exceed the statutory investment requirement of $100,000. And then they add another $50,000 down here per year of charitable contribution in addition to the mandatory contributions to the Territorial Scholarship Fund and the Department of Labor database. There's your government aspect. So in total, $150,000. It says here, Mr. Epstein has been a long-term resident of the Virgin Islands. Know that he has given generously over the course of the last 11 years to various charities in the Virgin Islands. So it's almost as if this was the whole purpose why he moved there. Now, it goes on here because there's more supporting evidence. Then all of a sudden, Epstein starts talking. Mr. Epstein, thank you. What's happening in today's environment is the fact that most everyone here has a computer in front of them. Most of the time, if you look back 25 years, if you wanted to know whose genetics determined your current circumstance, if you wanted to get financial advice, if you wanted to get medical advice, you would go to one doctor. You would hopefully choose the right doctor, and he would, according to his experience, say, fine, maybe you have a stomach ache, and we have in response to your problems 3 or 4 solutions. In fact, if you were going to go into the Army years ago, they classified your health like only 5 categories. Were you sort of healthy, or were you F4? Everything was very general and very broad categories. As you're all aware, everything nowadays has become personalized. You have your clothes that you wear can be custom made. Everyone has many options on how to set up their computers. What's happening in the world is that many decisions that used to be made by a single individual, now it's impossible to get accurate information without accessing vast numbers of databases. And this is the core of what his Southern Trust Company did, organizing mathematical algorithms so that if you want to know what my predisposition is for cancer, we can have my genes specifically sequenced. Now, this was back in 2012. And now we have Stargate AI that Larry Ellison and Trump's tech billionaire buddies say will do exactly what Epstein said in 2012. Use the database, sequence instantaneously to find a cure for cancer. You guys, 2012 was 14 years ago. Are you starting to wake up now to the seriousness of this? Anybody telling you to move along and not look at this stuff, they're paid off to say that, or I don't know what's going on. But this is not the truth community that I remember. Here's literal proof. Another connection to Trump. Now we have AI to do it. But Epstein was talking about AI all throughout the files as well. These men all knew each other. Now, he goes on, because there's more, and I'm going to kind of scroll through this and give you a summary, but everything I'm going to say next came from here. I just don't want to get laden down on this. This is a pretty long document. They ask him why the Virgin Islands, and Epstein explains that St. Croix has high-speed internet hub. Remember the same hub that we saw in another Epstein email? Remember they were talking, that guy was saying that he thinks he solved why Trump and Epstein were fighting over a property because it was right on one of those high-speed internet hubs, and that he thought it was linked into Tiny Bits, which was basically an internet for little girls. I think we have a connection here. Now, at this point, they're asking him questions, and this is when we discover the lie. Epstein says he needs mathematicians to come to the high-speed hub to manage the servers, because the people, they seem to be on to him. They're like, dude, this is a little bit weird. Like, why here? Like, it's kind of like, it's the same thing people ask me when I moved to France. There's the people there were like, ooh, you're kind of out of place here. Like, what are you doing here? Or when I moved out to the Ozarks, they're like, who are you? Like, you're kind of out of place here. Well, they were asking Epstein the same thing. They're like, what are you doing out here? And he tries to explain, but they smell a rat. He says he needs mathematicians to come to the high-speed hub to manage the servers, to program computers for his cancer algorithms. Now, none of this passes the sniff test, especially when we account for Epstein's funding of the Fitbit internet servers for underage girls. He's the one that paid for part of that. And why he positioned himself near the high-speed internet hub. So it sounds to me like this cancer algorithm is obviously a cover story for something else. What was he really working on? Now at this point, it gets really weird because he starts talking about experimenting on Africans. He says because there's no regulation in Africa. How sick is this? Here's his words. He says, again, it's an exciting area that the idea is that the diseases that affect the local population, I do lots of work in Africa. To back up Africa is, for me, a fertile ground for experimentation because it has been so underdeveloped. it has not been burdened with the current system. What do I mean? And then he says, when telephone companies now come to places like Senegal, where I was a couple of months ago, they don't put copper in the ground. They don't have to worry about laying cables and going to everyone's house. They leapfrog the old systems, going directly to cellular. So, though Senegal and Ivory Coast are poor countries, 70% of the people have cell phones because they were able to not deal with the local inbred telephone companies who had to charge a ridiculous sums of money because they had already laid all the piping copper in the ground. The same thing here. Africa has almost no medicine. It's difficult, but with searching as opposed to testing people is not the same. Not everyone needs an aspirin, and not everyone needs the same aspirin. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So he talks about doing experiments in Africa because there's no regulation. Now, we had uncovered years ago when we were on the trail of Obama. You know, it's funny because people that are new to the channel, they're like, you just pick on Trump. No, we spent about 5 years picking on Obama. Until you understand that all these people are on the same side, you'll never, ever figure it out. We pick on the person who's in power at the time, who is lying to our faces. That's the strategy on this channel. Because they're all liars and they're all on the same side. So during our Obama research, we were trying to figure out how it was that Obama could confidently say he was born in Hawaii. And then remember, we found the place in Africa called Hawaii, Africa. It was literally on the map. And where was it? It was in the middle of this reserve, the same reserve from which the Lion King animation was based off of. I can't think of the reserve off the top of my head. But then we started to realize that Obama even named his children after Lion King characters. And we're like, what the heck is going on here? And we found a research outpost called Hawaii, Africa, where there were top Ivy League schools who had funding to do experiments. They don't tell us what the experiments were, but that was what we uncovered years ago in digging to Obama. And we realized Obama was the Lion King. Now, let's keep going, and I don't want to get off track here. Let me check in with you guys. Make sure we didn't get booted off. All right, you guys are here, all tuned in. Very good. Let's keep going. Now, Epstein is then asked to drill down on what service he is offering and to who. And Epstein replies that his customers will be the pharmaceutical drug companies. Let's look that one up. This one's important. Now, this is unbelievable. Let's find it here. Okay, so who are you catering to? They ask. I mean, people are going to come to you and say, you know what? I have an ailment. I need you to search and see if there's a cure. Epstein replies, no, it's the drug companies. To develop a new drug now costs $1 billion. Because you sort of start from scratch, and it's really like trial and error in your backyard, trying to figure out which piece fits in which screw in this screw. So the drug companies spend the first 5 years testing all the different parts to see if it will work on this drug, on this database, on this disease, sorry. The drug companies could much rather have my computer to do the trials and errors. So the board is still trying to figure out, like, dude, none of this makes any sense. So I can almost see the looks on their faces. They're just puzzled as to how an individual can just show up and make money out of thin air by creating an algorithm he's going to sell to drug companies, and for some reason he wants the Virgin Islands involved. They don't buy the cover story. They're like, oh, just because we have fast internet? Well, you can find fast internet anywhere. Now let's keep going with this. Epstein claims the algorithm will cut down on research and development times, which I just read. He then explains that the database he will mine from is the Human Genome Project. This was in 2012. And they ask him about privacy concerns. And he says there are no privacy concerns because people can opt in and out of sharing their information. because they're only part of the database if they basically concede to doing so. They have to literally opt out in order to not have their stuff read or their information shared. Now, this all begs the question, does this include 23andMe and all these things? Who knows? And then at a certain point, he explains that his product is a gene tracker. I think he uses those words. No. But there he goes, tracks genes. Okay, there it was, tracks. The chair says, so it's a biomedical Google that, and then Epstein interrupts, he says, yes. The chair says that tracks genes, preference, gene receptivity to different medications in order to make doctors more efficient. Epstein says yes. And drugs more efficient. Tailor-made drugs. This is exactly what Larry Ellison said Stargate AI would do. The drug would be tailored to each person. Are you awake yet? You guys, there should be 20,000 people in here right now watching this and spreading this information. Let's look it up. Larry Ellison. Tailor-made medicines. Tailor-made. Unbelievable. Cancer vaccines and AI. This is why Trump didn't want to release the Epstein files. This goes far beyond the PDF file aspect to all this. This is huge. Now, remember all the shows we did on targeted individuals? And I told you that they were looking for something or looking for someone. Well, when you combine what Epstein wanted to do with this Southern Trust business, and you think about it through the lens of his New Mexico eugenic agenda and how he wanted to seed the human race, it absolutely does appear that he or they are looking for somebody. Are they looking for the perfect victim? What would stop a person like Epstein from trying to, for instance, recreate the gene that makes young girls precocious Lolitas? What if that was the goal? Do you see where all this is headed? It's diabolical. Now, here's where things go off the rails. At this point, the board asks him again why he has a server there in the Virgin Islands. Why does he want a server in the Virgin Islands? Because they're not buying this whole high-speed internet lie that he's pushing. And Epstein responds, for security reasons. I'd like to have everything here for security purposes. As you know, everybody is hacking servers. The only way to really, unfortunately, to make sure you're secure is to have a location, is to have location-wise. Once you put your server, and then the chair interrupts, so your server will be more or less your vault rather than a server to power anybody else anywhere else. He says, yes, the systems, everything is interconnected. But again, the only real way to have certain types of things is servers that are not connected to the internet directly. So he literally admits it's not even going to be connected to the internet. And you could tell that the chair and the board are just not buying it. Wow. He then explains that the server won't be connected directly to the internet, as I just read. And what could go wrong there, right? I mean, is that even legal? That's like the dark web or something. At this point, the chair asks him how this is going to create jobs. And he explains that at some point, he will need more people as the business expands. So everything is like a future promise. He then mentions that the speed of the internet is vital to how efficiently his business will run. At this point, the board calls him out again and asks what benefit this will be to them in the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas. Because they're like, what, you're going to create 5 jobs to begin with? Because that's all Epstein promises, only 5 new jobs. And then Epstein replies that they will get his business taxes. He says, so obviously in terms of taxes and employment. And then the board replies, I'm sorry, taxes for 5 or so individuals that, and then Epstein says, no, the business taxes. Business taxes? Yes, sir. But you are getting an exemption. So they call him out again because he doesn't even have to pay taxes. He says, and then this guy, he says, right, but the exemptions are only 90% on eligible income. So you're saying that 10% would be substantial for the territory? Yes, says Epstein. The answer is yes, and combined with employment, it's a little downside. Wow. Now, at this point, I mean, could this get any crazier? He brings up Iceland. He says, well, for the medical things through the drug companies as well as certain medical NIH, the hospital divisions, the medical countries, he's replying to the question, how do you market that? Then Epstein says, Iceland is one of the few countries, and that's another discussion at some point, because Iceland is an isolated community, and they have 50 years of genetic information. So everyone in Iceland has a genetic sequence, and you can then see what's happening. The children, what was really inherited. Is breast cancer inherited? Not inherited. Is schizophrenia by simply looking at all the data that was accumulated? Then he says he compares St. Thomas to Iceland for the same reasons. He says places, frankly, like St. Thomas are the perfect place to sequence people because it's so isolated. You're able to get much better data than ever before. And it also ends up, and that's one of the advantages of being here as opposed to New York. Wow. So he wanted St. Thomas's data hub, and he also wanted St. Thomas's genetic information. This is really weird, isn't it? So this is what I found. He talks about the DNA and more about Iceland, and this goes on and on. So let's get into some of these other files that I found that kind of tie into this, okay? In this email, Epstein asks a man named Richard Merkin if he has any cloning updates. Says, where are you? Any cloning updates? So I looked up who Richard Merkin is. Now this was in 2014. And this is Richard Merkin. Oh, nothing to see here. The Health Evolution. This guy does, what does it say here? He basically works with stem cell research. What could go wrong there? Now, here's another email. Remember, I told you top scientists in the world had access to Epstein. That's not normal, you guys. And anyone that says it is not living in reality. Here's another one. George Church emails Jeffrey Epstein. And he's actually concerned about ethics. Because down here, Epstein says to him, sorry, you can't make it. Did the cloning issue give you pause? And the guy says, George Church says, yes, I'm working toward this goal fairly rapidly, but trying to do so in a way that minimizes risk to the field. James Wilson, who happened to be my physician in the 90s, set back the field of gene therapy by a decade by rushing. My lab is good at conceiving of radically new technologies, as well as improving throughput and quality by factors of 10. Given a couple of years and decent funding, this would become much more reasonable. I'm too busy doing it well to get distracted by trying to do it badly. So this guy rejects Epstein's push to clone. Now, weirdly, we know that he's talking to George Church, but then there's another email here, and they redact George Church's name. So they forgot to redact. It's the same email, just a different part of the chain, but they redact it in this one, but they don't redact it in this one. So what's that about? Now here's George Church. He's a top geneticist, molecular engineer, chemist, and entrepreneur. So hats off to this guy for rejecting. See, these are the people we should be celebrating. Okay? There are good players in all this. Not everybody was hanging out with Epstein to, do something nefarious. And we have proof of someone rejecting it. We should say, okay, there's a good person right there. Wow. Now, here's another email. This guy's name is Barnaby. Let's go to find it here. Barnaby Marsh. And Epstein tells him that they should build a mind reader. He says, should we build a mind reader? It would use de-encryption, new understandings of the brain. Number 2, can we involve the New York Academy of Sciences in one of our projects? I think it would be good for you as well as them. Should we do a project on tissue regeneration, cloning? I'm excited to accompany you as a voyeur on Modern's adventure. Unbelievable. So tissue regeneration, cloning, and mind reading. And they're serious. Now, this is Barnaby Marsh. This is the guy he was talking to. Again, top scientist in the world, Harvard. Unbelievable. So, in summary, Epstein was fascinated with cloning and huge genetic data sets that he could use to mine limitless information. But he also happened to be a PDF file. And my guess is that he was also working on creating his own little harem of Lolitas, like Frankenstein, using his vast knowledge and research to put together a set of genes that would create his perfect victim. Instead of using body parts like Frankenstein, using genes. Now, literally everybody knew Epstein. And they all knew what he was doing. That's the takeaway from the files, you guys. This is why I never trusted our government. And this is the files were the proof. Straight up corruption on the right and the left. Epstein even had access to Peter Thiel and Zuckerberg. Let's see, did I pull up those emails? Yes. Here, they're talking about Zuckerberg getting together for dinner. And then they say invite Peter Thiel. These are all the same people that Trump has surrounded himself with on day 1 of his second term. This is unbelievable. Peter Thiel's dinner party. Jeffrey Epstein attended. This was in 2015, years after he was a convicted PDF file. That's the story. These people are all still hanging out with him. Set up Thiel, Zuckerberg from 6 to 9 August if you can. Jeffrey Epstein tells Ian Osborne, Wow. Trump's oligarch tech plan is all the people that were closest to Epstein. Now, let me go back to the chat here. Tomorrow we will be back to the headlines. There have been some new developments. And so that's where we're going to do tomorrow. Now, the other aspect of all this that this could be about, if you think of it from a biblical perspective, the Bible talks about a last days remnant, and that we will be at war with the beast. Certainly starts to feel like that now, doesn't it? It's certainly starting to feel like that. Fighting the AI beast, trying to tell people the truth and send them to Christ. And there's so much resistance, so much resistance. The beast lies. Less and less people each year believe in Jesus Christ. They're lost in the lies, the AI beast, the reality weapon. Nobody knows what's real anymore. This is why people aren't responding and reacting to the Epstein files. I'm hearing all kinds of theories. I'm hearing theories like, oh, AI just created the Epstein files. Seriously? They've destabilized our reality with lies. And so they can just hide in plain sight and nobody knows what to believe anymore. So, are they looking for the last days remnant to make war on the remnant? They could be. They could be targeting the saints and wearing out the saints. I don't know, but this is insane. So that's what I wanted to show you guys today. Again, tomorrow we'll be back with Between the Headlines. Some of it will be related to the Epstein files, but there'll be some other stuff as well. But okay, I'm back in the chat, you guys. What the heck just happened, right? So on my Facebook yesterday, I uploaded some video of an armadillo that I captured. So I'm out in the back, right? And I've got this stack of wood, and I'm hearing this rummaging around in the leaves. I'm like, what? Well, it's literally like 10 yards away from me. And I'm thinking, okay, that maybe it's that turtle, because I had some pretty big turtles come through here. But it sounded like different. So I look behind the wood pile, and there's this massive armadillo. That thing, it was a mother of all armadillos. That thing was twice the size of Boots. Now, one time when I was sitting in my hunting blind, I look out, and Boots is standing on top of a stump that I had left out, and he's staring at this armadillo. So I had seen the armadillo before, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some... See, Boots knows not to even mess with the armadillo. He just watches it. He's like, I'm not touching that thing. Boots has not started hunting yet, or at least he hasn't brought me anything yet. But, he's still a kitten, so I'm hoping he's going to come into his own and start hunting and getting rid of rodents and stuff, right? So I'm patient with him. He's a great cat. But, yeah, the other day I'm in the blind, and Boots is standing on the stump just watching the armadillo, like entertained by it, but he's not like messing with it, which is probably good because I guess they carry disease. Anyway, fast forward to yesterday. I'm outside. I'm putting together a metal shed, which, oh, by the way, if you think that that's just a one-day project, I got news for you. This shed took me 3 days to put together, and it almost drove me insane. I'm like covered in 1,000 cuts from the sheet metal, and there was probably 10,000 pieces to the shed. So even though they're cheap, they take forever to put together. And then the thing wasn't even really leveled that well. So like by the end of it, I had to like drill holes to make it fit together. So not fun. Anyway, I hear rummaging going on, and I'm like, oh, wow, what is that? I go out, and this armadillo is just right there. He's like 5 feet away from me. He's like not even scared. For those of you that live out in the country, you know that most wild animals, they won't let you get within 25 yards of them. If they see you or smell you, they run away. Well, apparently armadillos are different. They just, I don't know if they're blind or what. This armadillo, like, had I not moved out of the way, he would have ran into me. That's, he looked a little bit like Piglet from, what is it called? From Winnie the Pooh is what their little head looks like. They got a little tiny head, and they've got all this armor. They look like they're wearing like a flak jacket or something. It's bizarre. And they got this long, thick, ropey tail. And so I'm just laughing at this thing. It's rooting around under the leaves. I guess it's eating grubs or whatever. And so I pull out my phone. I got some video of it. That's on my Facebook page. So, it's funny. The shed came with these white gloves, and I'm like, what are these for? And when you try to put the gloves on to protect yourself from the cuts, you can't hold the sheet metal because it's too slippery. I'm like, this is lame. I'm like, I should have just like paid somebody to do this, but it literally took me, I counted the hours. It was like an 18-hour job. So, okay. So what else is going on, you guys? Yeah, they're like little tanks, aren't they? All right. Yeah, it's got like a little pig head. Like a micro pig head, like it got shrunk or something. You know, like those memes where they shrink somebody's head. That's what they look like. Oh my gosh. Okay. You guys do armadillo races? That's hilarious. How do you do that? I mean, they're kind of tame, but you never want to touch one because they carry like leprosy. So I kept my distance. Now it was weird. Like all of a sudden, he realized that I was standing there, and he tried to run, but they don't run very fast. You know, he's hopping around. That's all in the video on my Facebook. You guys can watch it and laugh. It's pretty funny. Okay. Yeah, they come in at dusk. You know, yesterday this thing came out in the middle of the day. I saw a herd of deer walk by too. It's like they didn't even see me. They just walked on by. It was like 10 deer. I didn't have my crossbow, so I ran in to get it, and I could see them walking. By the time I opened up my window to try to take a shot, they were gone. So, oh, they have poor eyesight, says Mr. Dunham. Yeah, you know, one of the first years before I moved out here, when I was, you know, I got the land and everything, there was like an armadillo, dead armadillo, like every 3 miles. So some years are worse than others. I have not seen a lot of roadkill this year or since, but that was a bad year about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, I don't claim to know, or, you know, I'm not into, you know, the whole, how do I put this so I don't offend people? I just don't take the time to put any emphasis on tracking bloodlines, my own bloodlines and other people's bloodlines. I feel like that takes the focus kind of off of the gospel and stuff like that. The Bible calls it endless genealogies. So I don't claim I'm from a tribe of Israel. So I'm not taking anything away from people that do, but I just choose not to focus on that. I've seen deer carrying crossbows, so be careful. Red squirrels in New Brunswick look like little chipmunks. I have a couple here in the yard. So cute. I call them Chippy. Yeah, those red squirrels are really cool looking. Did you know I've actually seen a black squirrel before? Have you guys seen those before? When I was in Connecticut, I saw a black squirrel. I was like, what the heck is that? And it was a black squirrel. Apparently they exist. They're just very rare. All right. Have you guys ever seen a black squirrel? I wonder if white squirrels exist. I've never seen one of those with my own eyes, but gray. Yeah, the gray ones are pretty common. Cheryl saw them. All right. I saw a black squirrel in my development, but then somebody hit him. That's messed up. Oh my gosh. Poor black squirrel. Probably did it on purpose. Seen an albino squirrel. Yes, I got hacked yesterday. I explained at the beginning of the show. Yeah. Okay, here come the jokes. Look what they're doing now. Oh, you got 666 viewers. Yeah, right. There's probably tens of thousands of people in this chat right now. They just won't show us the accurate numbers. We have dozens of black squirrel in our place in Minnesota. Wow, that's cool. In your yard daily. Wow. I didn't know they were that common. All right, you guys, I'll let you go. We'll be back tomorrow with Between the Headlines. I got several headlines already pulled up. Thanks for hanging in there. And please share this video, hype it, whatever you can do. This one's just as important as the Epstein visiting Trump Tower in 2016. So please share both of those and let's get the word out, you guys. I love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day. Much love.